clear in my throat, man. I got like, I'm a little dunked up. You can get clear in my throat, man. I don't like to do that. I'm a little dunked up. You can get clear in my throat.
We are live. What's good, YouTube? Today, like every interview is special, but this one, when you talk about someone that is passionate about helping people, genuinely wants to support, has your back, from the day that I met him, Patrick has always reached out like, hey, whatever you need. Today was a perfect example. I needed a slot filled for today. Patrick was like, hey, whatever you need, just let me know the time and I'm there. He's a CCIE. He's an author. Above and foremost, as you can tell by his background, he's a Marine. I can't say former Marine because if you know Marines, once a Marine, always a Marine. And he lives his life with those core values of being a Marine. I thank Patrick, for always supporting me, having my back. From the day I joined Cisco, he reached out to me. And just from time to time, he's like, yo, whatever I can do to help you.
You're gonna tear me up, man. You gotta cut it out.
Hey, it's the truth. It's
Tighten up.
it's the truth. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the community that vouch and say the same thing. So I'm gonna stop talking. You know, he's an author, he's a content creator, he's a mentor. Today we have Patrick Kinane joining us. What's good, family?
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Man, I'm great. How about you, man?
I'm doing all right, dude. I'm doing all right.
That's good. Hey, thank you for joining in such short notice and, you know, just being available.
You're doing me a favor. Thank you.
For sure. All right, so Patrick is here to talk about the journey. When it comes to being a CCIE, he's done, I would say, the hard way. 5 attempts to get the CCIE. He's been boots on the ground in Cisco Tech. Now he's in sales. So he has an extensive journey that we're going to talk about today. Because for those of you that are trying to be great troubleshooters, I think tech is one of the places that really builds those skills probably better than any other organization. So this is going to be a great conversation. We thank you all for joining. Now, before we get started, I like to see where everybody's coming from, where you representing. Put your area code in the chat so we can do some shout outs and show some love to you all in the community. I see 919 representing. What's good, Sam? Tanea, what's up? Good to see you. Eric Child, good to see you. Jeffrey, CD, L Styles, thank you all for joining. We got 720-850-616-446-425-819. Montreal, Canada in the building. What's up, Melissa? Good to see you. 601. Huntsville, 256-859. France in the building. Look.
Huntsville where?
Huntsville, Alabama.
Man. The first time in my life I was ever called a pimp, I was coming out of a gas station in Huntsville, Alabama. And I held the door open for the guy and he was like, appreciate you, pimp. And I was like, you bet, man, have a good day. And I was like, the guy I just held the door for he's the GOAT. I love that guy. Huntsville, Alabama. It's got a place in my heart.
I heard that, man. It feels good when somebody calls you a pimp. It's like you're on top of your game.
Like, you know, not everybody has experienced that.
True story. Well, appreciate you coming on, pimp.
Yeah, man. You bet.
For sure. All right, we got 817 Dallas Fort Worth in the building. What's good? Maryland in the building. In Middle Tennessee. Yeah. Yo, what's in the middle of Tennessee? Is that like Chattanooga? Chattown?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You been through Tennessee?
No, man. The only time I went west really was Missouri. And you know, I was only there for Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, I'm in Missouri, so.
But other than that, I never really went off the East Coast until I went to San Diego for Cisco Live, which was one of the best times of my life.
I want to go there.
Yeah.
I want to go.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Vegas. I want to go to Vegas too.
I was scheduled to present at Vegas, but then COVID happened. So I was scheduled to present at Vegas, my first time presenting at Cisco Live, and then COVID put a wrench in everything. So I had to present digitally, right? I had to put together some content for the digital Cisco Live. And then also on top of that, I was scheduled to go down to Haiti to teach technology to the kids down there, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Cisco donated like a $1.5 million lab down there for the kids, wow. Right? And then they had a program where they were going down like once a year. And the first year I went to go do it, my passport was like expiring. So I had to have it expedited. So I spent like $500 or $600 because I was like, there's no way I'm not going to go to Haiti. Right.
Yeah.
And then I get the passport in hand, COVID. Right. So Vegas done, Haiti trip done. And then I really haven't left the house, to be honest. Yeah.
Man, COVID kind of shut down everything for real.
Everything.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to start. Yo,
what's up?
How did you get started in tech?
Money. Right. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I was standing outside this office. It was the operations office. And on the door, was this graph, like a bar graph, right? And it showed the income based on education. And what I really noticed was the difference on when you had a degree. And so then I got out of the Marine Corps and I went to Raleigh, North Carolina, which was not where I grew up. I grew up in Long Island, New York, right? And I didn't want to go back to New York because there wasn't really much going on. So I went and moved down to North Carolina, which what I didn't understand, like it was all my child. So basically I'm having a hard time trying to put it together. Right. So listen, ready? I went around like 18 years old. I joined the Marine Corps. I went off. I didn't go back home for like three and a half years, not going back home like ever for 3.5 years. Right. So then I go back stateside and I didn't want to go home. So I went down to North Carolina to Raleigh, and it was my childhood life where there wasn't many colleges around, then the Marine Corps, and then moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, where you have Duke, Peace, Meredith, Shaw, NCA&T, NCCU, ECU, UNC, NC State, Appalachian State. And so the concentration of people with degrees is a little higher. So I was like, man, everybody in the world has a degree. I didn't understand like it was because of where I was. Right.
Right.
So I was like, well, I guess I got to get a degree. So, but I couldn't find a job anywhere. Like even applying as a cashier at the grocery store, or trying to work at Lowe's, or trying to work at Home Depot, couldn't find a job anywhere. So through my brother, I was able to get a job as a garbage man.
Yo,
right?
What year was this?
I don't remember. I forget. It's all a blur. Everything is a blur.
Now,
it's all been a million miles an hour. So this must have been, that was when I got off active duty. I couldn't find a job for like 2 or 3 months, I think, if I remember correctly. And that would have been late 2008.
Okay. That's the reason why I was asking, because just like you, I got out of the military in 2007 and I had a really hard time finding a job. You think as a veteran, with all your military experience, your DD-214, honorable discharge, that you would have a job waiting for you.
Nope.
That's tough.
Even when you're specialized. So it doesn't work that way, right? And I had to ask my brother about it. And so he was like, well, when you're filling out these online forms, how are you answering the questions? So I said, well, like one of the questions was like, if you saw an associate stacking a display wrong, would you go over and modify the display yourself? Would you talk to that associate and show them how to fix it? And say like, hey, it was done wrong here and it's supposed to be this way. So you got to we'll do it this way. Or would you talk to a supervisor? I don't know which one you would choose, but I was consistently choosing that I would talk to the associate to help them better understand where it was wrong, where it needs to be done right. And my brother was like, no. In the Marine Corps, you do that. In the corporate world, you tell the supervisor, because if you tell the person that they did it wrong and they don't like the way you told them, you now are starting a problem in the workplace. And so you got to let managers handle people things and you handle your own business. So I still don't operate that way because I don't like to go now we're getting into an area that is, it can get really touchy, right? Because when do you let leadership know and when don't you know? When don't you let them know? When do they need to be involved? Right? And so that gets into all sorts of stuff. But what he said to me was when you are working as a cashier, right? It's not, we're not talking about network engineers. We're not talking about, what do they call them? High value resources. We're talking about somebody who's pulling the lever. And I mean, I was a cashier. When I was in the military, I was also working at the store on base as a cashier.
The BX or commissary?
Yeah. 7-day store. So not knocking anybody, but let's just be honest.
I did the same thing. I had to provide for my family. Military pay wasn't enough.
Yeah. So let's just be honest. I mean, so when you hear me talking about that they didn't want me, they wanted me to go to the supervisor, they didn't want me to handle it on my own. It was because I was really not in a position where like you kind of want to try to control variables, and you don't want the variable of the person that's going around telling people what to do when it's not their job.
That's a tough one because, you know, I look at it as you snitching. You know, you go to somebody's manager, you're like, you snitching.
So you're looked at as you're snitching, but then if you come and tell me, it's like, who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? I don't report to you. Right. So now you're telling me you want me to go tell the person you report to because you don't want to listen to me.
Right.
But I'm not going to go tell on you. So I was answering the forms wrong. I couldn't find but it took me a while to learn how to navigate a lot of that type of stuff. And I was trying to go to school and get a degree at the same time while I was jumping in and out of dumpsters.
Man.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I got to college, I didn't have as good of a vocabulary. So I didn't have a computer. So I was walking around with a paper dictionary. So when they would say words like reciprocate, and I didn't know what that meant, I would have to go look it up in the book.
You know, right? In 2008, 2007, that was a tough time to get out the military. For one, you know, the market had crashed. And for two, at that same time period, tech in a lot of industry were outsourcing. So like your customer service jobs and a lot of other jobs were all being sent overseas. So the job market was like really, really tough back then.
But none of that impacted me. Because when I got out of the military, with the plan of going back in the military as a commissioned officer.
Oh, okay.
So that was like, I needed a degree. There was no option. I needed a degree.
Right.
To execute against my plan. But then I met a woman that would eventually become my wife. She already had a degree from UNC Chapel Hill. I go to NC State. Sorry, Chuck Robbins, but let's go Wolfpack. We don't like the Tar Heels. I love the Tar Heels because I'm proud of my wife's accomplishments, but you know, let's go Wolfpack, okay? Chuck graduated. He played basketball under Roy Williams.
Oh, he did? That? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Chuck played college basketball at UNC Chapel Hill.
Wow.
How do you not know that? Yeah, man.
I didn't know that.
Chuck's a baller.
I'll cross him up.
Like legit. Chuck will beat you.
I will
Listen,
cross
he
him
played
up.
under Roy Williams, the man who coached Michael Jordan.
Man, I paid it under Roy Jones. Dude in the projects. I'll cross him up.
Yeah, you know what? The other day, who was it? Mr. Moss, right? You know who I'm talking about?
Mr. Moss.
I'm having a brain fart right now. He's a collaboration guy on Twitter. He knows who I'm talking about. He said something, and I challenged him. I said, do you want to race?
Yeah.
I said, how about we race, but no finish lines? And he replied back with like a gif of Usain Bolt.
Nate
right?
Moss. Yeah, Nate Moss. I know you're talking about.
Yes. And so I replied back, you know how you're saying you could cross up Chuck? I replied back, you should have chose a different gift because if I had a brand new pair of shoes on, I could beat Usain Bolt. You know, everybody runs faster when you get some new shoes on.
Hey, true story, man.
That's true.
True story. So
but getting back to the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
What'd you go to college for?
Political science, because I wanted to go back in as an officer.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But then I met this woman who eventually became my wife, right? And she wasn't so interested in being a military wife. I can't blame her, right?
Right.
But now that I kind of come to the conclusion that I'm not really going to go back into the military, I'm not going to go back and be an officer. She had a degree, and so by default, I had to have a degree, right?
Right.
If my wife did, so and she kind of also held me to that standard. Right. I'll be honest, a lot of this, me going for the CCIE and all that, one of the consistent things you'll see across it is the support from my wife in me getting that type of stuff. Right.
Right.
So she holds me to the standard. I hold myself to the standard. I get my degree, but now I'm no longer going in the military. And by this time, she's pregnant. And I don't have a job, but I'm about to graduate. So that's why the stuff you're talking about didn't impact me, because I wasn't too concerned about getting out of the military. I wanted to go back in the military. So the fact that the market was bad and all that, and the technology, I wasn't doing technology, right? Because 2008 to 2012, 13, I was studying politics. I wasn't studying tech. So the fact that the tech market was saturated or whatever was going on there those things didn't impact me because I was getting GI money coming in.
Right.
GI Bill money coming in, right?
Right.
So that was supplementing. That's how I was able to survive through the GI Bill and being a garbage man, because just being a garbage man, I would not have been able to get a college degree.
Yeah.
Right. So the GI Bill really helped me do it. But my wife on my side also helped me do it. We had one car. So, but she had to go to work at an elementary school. So I would load her up in the car, or we would load up in the car, get in the car, drive down there. And while I was driving, she was in the passenger seat reading study cards for me.
Wow.
Like she would read the front side and I would answer and she would flip to let me know if I got it right. And that was because I didn't have a car and she did.
Right.
So I would drive her there. I was staying in her apartment. And then I would drop her off at work, and the community college that I was going to was right up the road from her elementary school where she was teaching. So I would just drive up to the elementary school and start reading biology or reading whatever, because I can't really, what's the point in driving all the way back home? I got to come back for class anyway. So that was the way it was, and we were that way. So then how did I get into tech? That was the question, right? Well, the journey starts all the way that far back.
Right.
Because now she's pregnant. It's December 2013, if I remember correctly. Yeah, December 2012. December 2012, she's pregnant, gonna have a kid in March of 2013. I'm about to graduate, so I went to the engineering job fair, even though I wasn't an engineer. And the Cisco booth was there. And I knew I was interested in working for Cisco. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew I heard about it. I had worked with Marines that worked for Cisco.
Right.
Right. So it had a reputation that I knew about. And so I went to the Cisco booth, and after talking to him for a little while, I was like, look, I'm not an engineer, but here's what I can bring to the table. I don't have the technical skills or anything, but I have the aptitude. And let me tell you about some, like where I was telling him, I was like, look, my understanding of what Cisco TAC does is you folks have customers on the other side of the line that are unhappy about whatever's going on, money's being lost, and they want you to fix it.
Right.
So I told them, and you guys do it over the phone, right? So I said, what I do is I sit in the VA office, because when I was a student, I became a student worker for the VA, helping people get their education benefits. And if you used your GI Bill, which I don't know if you did.
Yeah, yes, I use it, of course.
You don't always get paid on time.
Right.
And some people, such as myself, use that supplementary income to really survive. For some people, that's their mortgage payment.
Right.
That's literally how they use it. And then they work to pay for school. But in their budget, that money coming from the VA is accounted for as their mortgage. The reason why I know that is because I used to have people basically coming in almost kicking down the door and saying, where is my mortgage payment? And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Let me explain to you like where I am on the totem pole and how I'm going to try to help you right now get that mortgage payment.
Right.
And so I was like, and I'm not doing it over the phone. I'm doing it face to face in person. And I'm not talking to the person who's saying you're losing my company's money. I'm talking to the person who's like, my mortgage is not being paid. Right. So I understood the importance of the time is money type of stuff. And because of that, I didn't have the technical background, but I was able to land an interview right there from the job fair. They were like, your interview's on Monday. And I didn't even know how unique that was. It was a Saturday, I think it was.
Wow.
It was a Saturday, and they were like, your interview's on Monday. So I show up to the interview on Monday in a suit. And we walked in the room, and the gentleman's name is Chris. I don't think he would care about me using his full name. Chris Tripoli. And I sit down, and the first thing he does after shaking my hand and we sit down is he looks at me and says, so, political science, what's up with that? Right? Because they're looking at people that have chemistry degrees, electrical engineering degrees, computer science degrees.
Right.
And then I'm like, I don't know, let me try it, guys. Can I have a turn? You know? And he's like, what's up with this? And I was like, yeah. And that interview kind of was going like how this one's going. Fluid, natural, all good vibes. It landed another interview. And they hired a lot of people on January 28th of 2013 into a program called SAP, where all of us got to get hired together and learn together and run through boot camps together. Keith Bogart over at INE, He was an instructor at Cisco before that job.
Wow.
We got
Okay.
to sit through his classes in person.
Nice.
Evidence-based troubleshooting, they put us through that. Shadowing TAC engineers. I knew nothing when I got there. I didn't even know what an IP address was. Within 5 weeks or so, I had my CCNA.
Wow. That, man, that's a blessing to actually walk into Cisco Tech.
Because I didn't know any better. See, all these people who say they can't do it, they just don't understand that they can. The problem is that they're in the field already. I had no idea. I didn't know I was walking up to Goliath. I just was saying, let me take a swing.
You know,
right? I had no idea what I was swinging at.
let's pause right here real quick.
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of people think that you need certifications, you need experience, you need all these things. And it, to me, you just need an opportunity. This is something I strongly believe. And you know, you walked into a job fair, got an interview, and then from that interview, somebody gave you an opportunity. I think a lot of people wouldn't even walk into the job fair.
I didn't want to.
You didn't want to. What made you do it?
My wife. I told her, I said, I'm not an engineer. Like, why am I even going to go? I'm not an engineer. It doesn't matter. Because in my head, all I knew how to do and all I wanted to do was work in a capacity that was similar to the military. I didn't want to be a cop.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? You're a veteran.
Yeah.
And I wanted that again. I wanted that back.
That brotherhood.
Because I worked in a unit. I worked in a unit that was very efficient, like very high. Like I think I tweeted this before. I've seen people get non-recommended for promotion to the rank of private first class, which is E2. You basically just have to breathe to get that rank.
Yep.
And they were saying, and they would do it for multiple months. They were just like, nope, you're not breathing right. You know, essentially, because you just have to breathe to get that rank. It's 6 months. People who have been in the military for 6 months, like basically fresh out of training, they get PFC. Some people come into the military at PFC or higher.
Yeah, I was E3.
Right? If you had college, right? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This guy couldn't even make E2.
So
I came from a unit where it was, you know, no games. I mean, we played a lot of games. It was a lot of fun. Right. Some of the games were terrible, especially because they were military types of games.
Right.
But all in all, it was a great time. But that's where I came from. So I did a long 3.5 years there, 3 to 3.5 years there. So when I got out and went to college, it wasn't your typical college kid that was walking among you. It was this guy who's like, okay, what needs to be done? When does it need to be done by? And can I get it handed in early? Right. Listen, when I wanted to go to NC State, my last semester at the community college, I treated every assignment as if it were the final project. I got a 100 on every single assignment I turned in, and I did it. Even the extra credit, I treated it as if it was like my final grade project because I wanted to get to NC State.
That's interesting because, you know, I've always, when it comes to the services, Air Force is big on attention to detail. You know, you all are great on following procedure, structure, and just being robotic and
doing what Marines do.
They're doing what Marines do, right? And so the fact that you actually pay attention to detail and you push yourself and stay motivated, man, that's awesome, man. And I want to go back. Something that
we still haven't even finished it because there's like probably 5 different paths we can take off of this conversation already. So what is it? Where are you taking it back to?
The support system. I think the fact that you had your wife to push you to go into that job fair, that's something, like you said, is always at the core. And I think it doesn't have to be a significant other always. It could be a mentor, a friend, a brother or sister. And a lot of times you have that person that will push you, but everybody don't want to be pushed.
Yeah, you're right. And not everybody wants to push you or they don't know how to, and they don't know the timing of it.
Right.
Some people want to, they just don't. Like, and you look at them and you say, well, why didn't you say anything? And they were like, I didn't know. Or, you know.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is I got hired with a lot of other people. So I didn't need a study partner. We were all studying together, all coming into work, getting paid to study. If you can get into what's called CTIP, Cisco Talent Incubation Program. That's the new name for the program. If you can get into that program, man, I can't even describe what that program did, for me. I left that program. I came into it not even knowing what an IP address was. And I left it with a CCNA routing and switching and then a CCNA voice. And then I went off and worked on a flagship account for Cisco CMS. But that's the short version of how I got into technology.
Yeah, I just posted that in the chat for anyone that may be interested. That program is for veterans specifically?
No. So here's the deal. The reason why I said it by the name CTIP is because they have a couple different branches under a single umbrella. So VTIP, Victor Tango India Papa, is going to be Veterans Talent Incubation Program, which falls under CTIP, which is where new college graduates can come in. So you can get new college graduates coming in and getting engineering certifications and all that type of stuff. But then there's also people, it's part of I think it's called the $100,000 Jobs Project, I think it's called. And Cisco was a part of that, where there was multiple different companies trying to hire like 100,000 veterans.
Wow.
And so Cisco started like a pipeline and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, or maybe I heard it wrong because I was new to Cisco at the time, but that was my understanding of it, how the veteran side got started. So they started bringing in groups of veterans at a time from all the different branches. Wow. And then they would all start at the same time, learn at the same time, get certified and tested at the same time. And so when you get into programs like that, you're not strapped for finding study partners. And so I can't even explain the value of the program. And you get mentors that are like TAC engineers, technical leaders. I was talking to principal engineers and I didn't even know it. I was talking to distinguished engineers and had no idea. Like one-on-one, talking to executive level engineers. And I had no idea, and I didn't even know what an IP address was.
Man, hey, that's one of the things about being in Cisco. A lot of distinguished engineers, and when we talk about distinguished engineers, they're like the top.
They have a patent or multiple patents.
Yep.
They are advisors.
Yep.
At a high level. I've worked with Cisco fellows.
Yeah, Susie Wee was a Cisco fellow.
And so one of the reasons why I've tried to stay at Cisco ever since I got here, it's kind of like a running theme for me. Whenever you ask me about any phase or any point in my life, how I felt about it, if I liked it, it's probably going to be due to the people that I was with. If I disliked it, it's probably going to be due to the people I was with. And right, so at Cisco, the people I've been with have made me like it even more.
Right.
I mean, I literally sat in a row that was all CCIEs.
Wow.
And that was before I was a CCIE. So I was studying for it and getting to first thing in the morning when I'm dead tired and they're seeing me and they're like, oh, what are you working on now? And, and they're like, oh, yeah, I remember it being like that. I'm not having to do it over Twitter. These are people I know face to face.
Right.
And you don't get that everywhere.
Yeah, and it's hard to get that now with the pandemic, because...
Yeah, but still, at least you have access to a remote... Listen, you and I really didn't get to know each other until you started a job at Cisco.
Right.
And I saw that as my opening to get to talk to you. That's why I reached out to you. And so you get a certain level of access to certain types of people when you work at certain companies and there's no dollar amount you can put on it.
Yeah.
And so if you can get into that program and get to Cisco, it's not only the program that will be invaluable for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the truth. I think one of the things that we probably need to mention is that, you working side by side, those CCIEs, that kind of is like a shortcut in your journey, your knowledge journey, because you can tap somebody on the shoulder to say, hey, what do you think about this? Or you can just watch them work, and then you can pick up on their conversations, their calls, the way they approach topics, designs, all of that. So that's invaluable when it comes to growing in your knowledge in IT. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. And to add some additional statements to it, I spoke to every single one of them. What did you find to be the most valuable study resource for you? Um, who did you find to be the best instructor for this one or that one? Like this for I remember for Cisco Unity Express, Kevin Wallace's approach was held as the best approach by us, and that was like among people, it was a reputation for it, for that specific approach he had, because it was all CLI, and so it made it a lot faster and easier. Because I could type it up in Notepad++, and I could, if I was building out a phone or building out like a voicemail box or a user, I could just type it up, copy that user, paste it, and then modify the username or the password or the voicemail box number or whatever. And now I just copy out from Notepad++ into the terminal. But if I was in the GUI, I would have to do each one without being able to copy and just edit and tweak. Right. So we held his approach to it. There is so much strategy that goes into getting the CCIE that I can't wait for us to get to that part. But going back to the people, man, and being able to talk to them, I realized a trend where almost every single person I spoke to at some point in time relied on content from Vic Mulhey, who was at one time back in the day, I think he was at IP Expert. So a lot of them were saying that we used IP Expert, and I was like, well, who's the instructor? Because IP Expert went out of business. Right. I have no idea what happened there. I don't know what the cause was, if it was anything political or whatever. I have no idea. I didn't care about that. I just knew they went out of business, right? So I'm like, well, what happened to the instructor? Oh, he started his own company. Well, what's the name of that? Collab Cert. And then I started realizing that a lot of the other people I spoke to as well, Antonio McCarver.
Yep, he loves Vic.
So you know I'm not lying.
Yep.
And so when you get to talk to these people and you get to see the trends about who's people talking about, it's kind of like going online when you're going to hire somebody to do work for you, and you start reading reviews about the different people. Right. Who's got the proper skills of the craft to help you get the job done the best way? Well, that was Vic. I kept seeing him up on Angie's list, getting 5 stars. Right. Everybody would talk about Vic. So I was like, man, I got it. But it was so expensive.
Yeah.
So expensive. And I couldn't get it. I had to talk to my manager again and again. And he was like, we don't have the funding for it. And then after like my 4th attempt, I think, I went back and was like begging and pleading. And he was like, you know what, just go get it. I'll talk to my boss and say, like, sorry, I told him yes, you know? And that's the way the leadership is. And that was the way that guy in particular was, right? So I went and got it. And really what I needed was the ability to have a phone call with Vic, which I was able to do. That was the main thing I wanted out of buying Collab Cert. I wanted to talk to the man, right? And the man, the GOAT, was Vic. So I had gotten some good time. And here's the best thing about Vic and why I recommend Collab Cert so well. Because Collab Cert, and the reason why I'm harping on it is because it was the keystone that I was able to use to get my, so he said that he can take CCIE candidates from about the 70 to 80% you're going to pass mark and help them and train them and give them the strategies and help them understand and really ask you the dumb questions like, are you really truly reading the exams? Then why aren't you hitting the requirements?
Right.
Because you read it and you interpreted what you thought they wanted you to do rather than what they're telling you to do. And so he was like, you really got to read it and do what they tell you to do rather than what you think they said. And stop thinking you know what they're saying. You know, churn on it a little more, read it again until you realize and the light goes off. Like all this time I've been thinking I was supposed to do this. And I didn't even realize that this one word right here that I've been flying over because I've been trying to read it so fast because I'm worried about the time because everything is timed. And then you realize that one word and it changes like the whole context of the entire task that you have. And so now you realize why you've been losing so many points, because you don't just lose 1 point. It's no partial credit. If a section is worth I don't know, let's say 6 points, I have no idea, and you have a typo in the name of the username, you just lost that whole. It's not like, oh, he had put an S instead of, what's next to S? I don't have next instead of an A.
Right.
Right. You were supposed to put an A, but you hit S. Sorry, you lost all those points. And so people wonder why the CCIE is so difficult, and it's because you have to know it to that level, and you have to know, like, you have to have a certain level of accuracy, which is 100.
Right. Right. Let me ask you this. So
What's up?
while you're on tech, at what point did you take your, I know you said 5 weeks you got your CCNA, but at what point did you go for your CCIE after being on tech?
It's a long, as you'll see, all these are long answers. So I hope you don't mind me talking. I know we're here for people to hear us, but if at any point you're like, dude, you are going all over the place, stop me and I'll slow it down and we can tackle any one topic at a time. Or are you liking the pace?
It's all good. Go ahead, man.
All right. Okay. So I got my CCNA routing and switching. They sent me over to go support this account that was a global account across the whole world. I think they had like CUCM clusters across 38 different countries. And within the United States alone, I don't even remember how many they had, but it was a big account, and they had all the different VoIP technologies and protocols, even the outdated ones like MGCP and Gatekeeper, which I don't know if they probably only exist in the government now, but they had it when I got there. They were on, I think Call Manager version 12 was out, and they were still using Call Manager version 6.
Wow.
Right. So, but they also had other clusters that were across, like they had a 6, they had an 8. I think they had a 7, version 7. And so everything was like a hodgepodge when we took it over. But then Cisco Professional Services, because this was a new client, we were taking them on as our biggest customer in Cisco CMS. And Cisco Professional Services got their hands on everything and started consolidating clusters and upgrading clusters to newer versions and then cutting them over. So then everything eventually got a little bit more the way it should be, right? And then things were boring. So then I made my way over to Cisco TAC.
Okay.
But even when things were boring, I kind of wasn't really learning anything in the new role. I was troubleshooting a lot of PRIs on the gateways and troubleshooting fax. There's a couple people out there that probably cringed just now. But eventually it was just kind of like repetitive. So I was studying certs to fill that gap. And so even when I wasn't studying for my CCIE, but I was studying for my CCNP at the time, which was 5 different exams.
Yeah, for collab.
And I didn't pass them. So there was 5 different exams, multiple attempts on each one. That was not easy, but Cisco paid for all of it.
That's a good thing.
Right. So we can talk about, make sure you're at a company that does stuff like that, because it lets you know they value their people. We can talk about so much stuff, man. I'll probably have to come back. But listen, for talking about valuing your people and investing in them, you ever hear the saying about, what if we train them and we spend all this money to train them and they leave? You ever hear that before?
Yes, of course.
And the response is, what if we don't train them and they stay? Right. So make sure you're at a company where they understand the importance.
Yeah.
Because if they're not investing in you and helping you pay for it, and I'll be honest, Cisco does it. I don't use it as much as I should. I haven't used it in a while. Most of us don't use it at all.
I got a question in the chat. I'm gonna ask you something. The question is from CD. It says, is the CCIE still something worth going for today with the rise of the cloud? I mean, CCIE is at least 2 years worth of studying. What's your thoughts?
My boss's boss got her CCIE in 6 months and wasn't a network engineer when she came into it.
Wow. So it's all about the level of focus and
well,
dedication.
She came into a different program called CSAP at Cisco, which is for our sellers. So she came in to be an SE on the sales side. And she was doing programming and stuff before she got here, but she didn't know networking. And so she went from nothing to CCIE in 6 months. So you can say it's at least 2 years of studying, but it depends on what you got on your plate and how bad do you want it.
Right. Now, the question is it worth it? Is the CCIE
Yes.
worth
Okay.
it?
Is it worth it?
Yes.
As I've had the CCIE longer and I've been able to leverage it for different things, have seen more value from my CCIE, not less. When I was interviewing for this job that I have now, the two things that stood out the most were you've been in TAC for 6 years and you have a CCIE? And then the interviews weren't even all that technical.
Right.
It was just seeing, like, do you have the personal skills to be an SE? I mean, that's pretty cool.
I think at some point in your career, your resume kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And I could just after just a couple technical questions, they understand your technical depth. Especially if you're like you're an author, you're putting out content consistently, and the content is in depth. And so from there, they're already gauging you before they interview you, and so they have an idea of who Patrick is. And then once you get in there, after those couple questions, now it's saying, okay, let's get to the core of who Patrick is to see if he's a good fit for this position.
Essentially, yeah. And so you probably know you make the content and put it out there and you want it to be public because you're kind of putting your portfolio, it's kind of like building a body of work so that you can, to be honest, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't ever want to be unemployed again.
Right.
And I want to be able to have my name be known before people even see my face. And if you're not operating at that level, thank you. Because when I'm trying to not be unemployed, unfortunately, it might be you that is being unemployed. And and like, as much as I wish that on nobody, I got kids.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk to, especially younger people when they're coming in tech, let's say you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, and you're putting out things, you're having fun, you're doing whatever. Yep. I often ask them a question like, okay, do you want an employer to look and see this, or would you rather have something that's going to say, oh, okay, yeah, I want to bring them in and interview them, And so I think from the day you decide you want to be in tech, you need to really rethink what you have online as well as what you're going to put online that's going to build your resume and speak for you while you sleep.
It goes further than that. You probably didn't see it. I was hoping you would have seen it. Sometimes I do stuff because I'm like, I wonder if DeJuan's going to see this. My son got this book of stamps, and it had stamps from all over the world. And one of the stamps was from Zimbabwe, I think. And it was a stamp commemorating the fight that you have a painting for with Muhammad Ali, where they were saying Ali Boumaye,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I took it and I posted it, and I was like, hey, because here's the thing, I like boxing. I looked up to Muhammad Ali. I looked up to Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm not them. Like, I can't fight like them, not at all. But I mean, like, they were people that we looked up to, right? And so I knew about the fight over there and the whole Ali Boumaye. So when I saw the stamp, I was like, man, this is awesome. And I posted it because I'll be honest, I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a while. And so I've been trying to make it happen. And so when you said, that's why when the call kicked off and you said, thanks for like being here with the last minute. And I said, no, man, you're doing me a favor. I've been trying to make this happen. And what people don't understand is that, like, if you're not trying to do those types of things, are you competitive?
Right.
Do you have do you really have the Mamba mentality? You might retweet it, but are you really having it?
Man, that's deep, because that's the
part.
I
bet you can go back and find that tweet. Check it out, man. You'll like the stamp. I'll mail it to you if you want it.
I'm going to check it out. It's your son's. I'm not going to take a stamp for your son.
He's got more. Wait till you see it, man. He's got so many.
Okay. But I think often in tech, the competitive is not spoken. The competitiveness of tech is not spoken about enough.
People would rather try to act like they're sad and in sorrow and life is so hard and I have to be on this troubleshooting call I used to drive to work in the hot North Carolina weather, looking at the people working on the side of the road and think, man, I am happy I'm going to go to air conditioning. But then I would walk in and sometimes people would be like, acting as though they didn't have it as good as they did.
Mental toughness. I think in tech, more than any other field, I don't want to say more than any other field because there's challenging jobs where it really takes, like being a cop, that's mental toughness. But being in tech, a lot of it is mental toughness. When you're on those calls, you're dealing with difficult situations. It isn't about knowing the answer. It's about having the focus to find the answer and manage the situation. And I think a lot of people miss the part about managing their time, managing people, managing situations. A lot of people don't focus enough on that because being a CCIE, being a senior network engineer, you got to know how to manage stress. And if you don't, you're not going to be successful in a high-paced environment.
Don't get me wrong. There were a lot of times where I thought I didn't. So one of the tweets I made recently was talking about getting so far outside of your comfort zone that you essentially, I don't know if I said it this way, but it was what I was thinking, getting so far outside of your comfort zone that you feel as though there's nothing, no other possible outcome but failing.
I'm there right now.
I feel like I'm there right now, but it's because I'm telling myself that I'm at a level that I'm not at because I'm trying to get to that level. I want to be an architect. So what I'm telling myself right now is that I'm not being better than the other architects, my peers. And so for me, I feel like I'm failing, but it's because I'm putting myself up against people who are already where I'm at, like trying to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some people get intimidated. It's heavy.
Yeah, some people get intimidated by that. Like if they are where you want to be in your
No, I befriend them. And I tell them, like, I actually told the guy earlier last week, I said, listen, if you would be so kind as to accept me as one of your peers, I want to try to learn from you. I want to try to help. Like, can you help me understand how to get there?
Right.
And I waited until I had a relationship with him so that it wasn't out of the gate. I waited until he and I had times for me to help him, for him to help me. And then once I felt like it was going to come up naturally, I let it come up naturally. Right. Because we were already basically friends because we worked together day in and day out. And we work closely helping each other to succeed because whatever money he makes, like we both work towards the same target in terms of our target goals. So whatever money he makes is helping me reach my goal and vice versa. And so if we're not helping each other, we're shooting each other in the foot. Right. So we already had that relationship and I felt comfortable explaining what I wanted to that person and asking them to help me understand how to do it.
So let me ask you this. You're already a CCIE, right?
Correct.
You have 6 years troubleshooting on Intact and working
Intact was about 6 years. A little over, I think, maybe.
I'm going to ask you this. At what point do you think you'll be an architect? You don't think you could apply, or do you feel like your skills have to be at a certain level to do it? I'm just asking.
All right, so I don't remember when, maybe Monday I said as of this week, or maybe it was Wednesday, I think. I said as of this week, I want to be an architect or something like that on Twitter. And then the next day, I think I had a one-on-one meeting with my manager, which was our, bi-weekly sync up that we do. And I essentially was like, look, you don't ever owe me anything and don't ever try to give me, I won't expect you to give me something that I don't feel I'm earning. I just want you to know what my plans are because I need you to understand like where I'm headed because I'm not going to be able to be in the conversations. You are going to be my representative whenever budget comes around for raises, promotions, whatever else, right?
Right.
And so I said, and I also understand that other managers are going to have input because you report up to another manager and those other managers are going to want to care for their people. Right.
Right.
So I need it to be that when she brings up my name, everybody else hears it and just doesn't even question it, pushes it through. Because I understand that they have input. And if their input is just like a thumbs up, then I want that. Right.
Right.
Man, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. I'm talking, throwing all the secrets out there.
We could pause.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. So when do I think I'll be an architect? I tweeted about that I had the one-on-one meeting with my manager. And I almost feel bad saying this, but I really, truly have been trying to talk to this guy just as bad as I've been trying to talk to you. So I tweeted about that. And then I went to my manager's manager, who I knew was on Twitter, found some tweets that he made that I absolutely agreed with, and just retweeted it and put a quote retweet and put my 2 cents in. And then next thing I know, he was commenting on the one about my sync up with my manager about expressing my interest towards being an architect and commenting, if you'd like, we can have a conversation about this and try to make a plan. And my response was, that's exactly why I've been retweeting you. I look forward to the conversation.
So there's a theme here. There's a theme about you being a go-getter and just paying attention for that opportunity and going after it.
People say that people are lucky. Luck is preparation intersecting with opportunity. If you haven't been prepared and an opportunity comes about, the chances of you being able to execute successfully against the opportunity are less than had you been preparing. But everybody else doesn't want to attribute their failure to the fact that they're not preparing. So rather than that, they would say you're lucky. Because they don't want to admit that, no, you're not lucky. It goes back to what you said earlier, the one about opportunities. An opportunity opened. Yes, an opportunity opened. However, I was mentally going through it. And so when I saw the opportunity, even walking into it, I was still kind of like going through it in my head. Right. And I don't expect other people to be this way, but it's just, I think not everybody thinks this way. And so maybe it might help some other people. Maybe not. Maybe everyone will be like, no, this dude's crazy. Let me know, Dewan. Am I speaking crazy or am I resonating or what's going on?
Nah, excuse me. Nah, I think the intersection of preparation and opportunity is dead on. I think, but at the same time, I think failure is the greatest teacher. You know what I mean?
So Einstein has some sort of quote about failure where he basically is saying, you never fail until you quit. And that was something among us. I studied with a lot of people for the CCIE. And there was a couple guys down in Costa Rica that we started saying that as long as we don't stop trying to get the CCIE, we never really truly failed. But the moment that we quit and throw in the towel is the day that we can say we failed. Right. So even though I failed this attempt, am I a CCIE today? So did I truly fail? So yeah, failure is just a part of the journey forward. So you want to get back to talking about the phases of the CCIE? Because this is like kind of segueing into it.
Yes. Shout out to Antonio. He has a similar story about his CCIE journey. He's in the chat. Yeah. So what's good, family? Good to see you, fam.
Yeah. Semper Fi. Ha. That's Mac. That's Mac right there.
Marines in the building.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, let's get back to the story about the journey.
The phases and all that. Okay, so when did I start studying? So remember I said that I was filling the gap of not having enough, I guess, sort of being stimulated by the job.
Right.
So I was studying for my CCNP, and then I got over to TAC, which was not easy, in part because I had some people trying to block me. They didn't want me to leave the team. And so I essentially was saying, well, and I didn't like the manager I had at that time. She actually is no longer at Cisco by her own choice, but it worked out for us, in my opinion.
Question. Question
Yes, sir.
before you go on. When you say they didn't want you to lead the team, they didn't want you to lead the team because you're a resource, or they
Yes.
didn't want you to lead the team because they were holding you back?
Because I was a resource, and then also they were already kind of stretched thin. But I had outgrown the role, and I didn't like the manager I had at the time. I've had amazing managers ever since.
You know,
But
I think we need to speak about this because a lot of people get in positions, especially when you're in a company and there's a team that you want to be a part of, or there's a project that you want to be a part of. They get in they get in these positions, and managers limit their growth.
mm-hmm.
How do you handle that?
I don't think I've had that before, man. Ever since I've been at Cisco, I actually wrote a big thank you, I think, at one point in the book. I think it is. Give me a minute. What book?
There you go. I told you he's an author.
Let me see this thing. Listen, because I actually really want to get to this, because you're talking about if a manager is holding you back.
Right.
So I'm getting down here to I'm trying to find my stuff where we do the dedications or whatever. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, ready? Can I read it out? Is that cool?
Yeah, you can read it. Go ahead.
To my beautiful wife, who has always supported me and our family, each time I work on a project, she takes on more of the tasks at home, especially when I was chasing the CCIE. And I appreciate all she does. To my amazing children who help motivate me to be a better version of myself, to my parents, siblings, and extended family, who all helped me grow up to be the man I am today, I love each of you very much. Last but not least, to all the people who have made the Cisco collaboration content and from whom I've learned over the years, here's a short list: Vic Mulhey, Mark Snow, Kevin Wallace, Paul Giroux, Jeremy Troyer, Andy Vassar, Ralph Smith III, and Network Chuck. Why do I not have it in here? I wrote some big thing about the managers. Yes, here it is. Okay, this is acknowledgments. My bad. Was that boring? Can I go back? Can I read this one out?
Go ahead.
My bad. Let me see. So acknowledgments. Thank you to all the other authors, but especially Kaiser. So Kaiser is amazing. You should bring him on.
Okay.
Kaiser, he's important enough that I'm stopping. Do we have a time limit?
Nah, we're good. We're good.
Okay. So Kaiser joined the team when I was still new, but I was pushing so hard that I had learned enough. And so I was trying to help Kaiser, and I wasn't really kind. I kind of treated him like a Marine at times, some of the ways I talked to him. But it was because we had a certain relationship, that sort of brotherhood, right? Not really, but we did. And then Kaiser has outpaced me. The only person that I will ever admit, Kaiser did it. And he got over to TAC, and he has crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. He hasn't only wrote this book, he wrote the other book. And the way this book got started was because Kaiser filled out an application requesting to do it. And then after he got it, invited me to the team. So when you see me writing posts about being invited to the table to break bread, I'm talking about it because it's happening.
Right.
So you reach a point where if you're executing at a high enough level, people want you to come help because they know the project with the right people on it will get done.
Right.
Are you the right person? Anyway, getting back to it. Now that I've talked about Kaiser, that dude is a beast, right? So let me start over. Thank you to all the other authors, but especially Kaiser. I know Kaiser put a significant amount of time into this book on chapters he authored as well as the others. A big thank you to our technical editors, the people who read the chapters to provide feedback, and Cisco Press. Thank you to the technical leaders, principal engineers, distinguished engineers, and managers within the collaboration TAC community for always being excited about the projects TAC engineers are taking on. Thank you for encouraging us along the way and for your continued guidance. That was my experience of TAC. So I never really had a manager. So essentially after the CCIE, you're not expected to hear what's next. But that was it. Like, it wasn't holding back. It was pushing forward.
Man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, man. That's
so
good
for
stuff.
whatever people say about Cisco and whatever they say about anything that's going on in the market, I truly believe that as long as you have the right people in the right places, the right things can happen.
Right. I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
We still got, I got to go back to it. I'm sorry, I keep jumping all over. You're going to have to shut me up.
Nah.
So, going back to the journey and the phases. So we started out, my wife, right?
Right.
And studying for the MP. And every time that I was up late. And here's the thing, when I was at Cisco, she had a baby. I'd only been there for 3 months. So remember, I got there, I didn't even know what an IP address was. I took 1 day of PTO off work and was right back to being at the office by 6:30, maybe leaving at midnight. And I'm not saying PM, 6:30 a.m. And she was at home being basically a single mother.
Right.
Right. And then she put up with all that all the way through to the point of when I got the CCIE. But before I ever took the CCIE, it was 2 years of my wife and I kicking the idea around.
You mentioned something. You actually made a video about your 5-year journey for the CCIE, and you mentioned a term about CCIE Widow. You want to talk about that real quick?
Or widower. I got to be careful because females are CCIEs too.
Yeah. My bad.
But I said the same thing. Because that was the term. It was CCIE widow. You know, like we threw it out easy.
Right.
And it was because it's good that I knew that term because it helped me better understand the expectations I had to set for the people around me and let them know, like, you're not going to see me for a while. And I had to make sure my wife was aware because I couldn't just say, like, are you cool with us like me going for the CCIE? Because I knew if I was going to get it, I needed her to be cool with what it meant for me to be going for the CCIE.
Right.
Not just cool with me going for the CCIE.
Right.
And so when the times got extremely hard and I really needed her, it wasn't like, it wasn't like a unilateral decision. I had her buy-in. We were doing it together. And so without that, if you're in a relationship, or even if you're not, you got to let friends, family, because they won't understand every time you keep saying no, and they'll keep inviting you out. And then that temptation will be there. It's better to not even get the ping.
I think when it comes to anything that you want to accomplish in life, having that tunnel vision is important. What I found is anytime that I'm focused and I say, this is the goal I want to set out for, there's always like distractions. And normally they're distractions that know that the universe knows that will distract me. It's never nothing that is easily to not distract me. You know what I mean? It's always something that's like, damn, why this have to happen now? You know what I mean? Along your journey, what was that thing or those things that would distract you and not try to knock you off course?
Man, you about to have me tearing up.
My bad, bro. I like to keep it real.
My children getting diagnosed with autism.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
My wife held it down on that too. Hardcore. Man, DeJuan, I'm gonna fight you when I see you.
My bad, bro.
You got me crying on TV.
My bad, bro.
No, it's all good. But it was hard, but we did it. I'm proud of it. I have look right here. It wasn't for nothing.
Right.
So if you ask me about the value of it, I was willing to do all that. You're asking the wrong person about the value of it. Maybe the right person, because I'll tell you that I would go back and do it again. The amount of value I've gotten from it, it's not just the technical value. It's the fact that I walk in the room and listen. When I first got to Cisco, I didn't know what an IP address was, right? Remember? So I definitely didn't know what a CCIE was. And I went to Toastmasters, and they would have Toastmasters so early in the morning. And I went, and there was this more senior person that was like kind of trying to boss me around. And I was new, so I was like keeping my mouth shut and just doing whatever. But I picked up on the way they treated the other person that walked in with the CCIE leather jacket on. And then like I heard him talking about his CCIE, and that's what got me interested. That was back in 2013. I didn't get my CCIE or even start trying for it until I think 2017. It was a long journey. If you want to talk about the whole journey and where did it start and the seed getting planted, it was probably then. So you got to understand it was a long, long journey.
You know, I can relate. I think the hardest part about what I do is the fact that I haven't accomplished the CCIE, which I want that so bad, and
do it.
I'm going to do it. But here's the thing. The reason why I want to do it is for myself, of course, but I think, just like you mentioned with the respect of the jacket, I think if you're serious about this, anything you do in life, you should try to reach the top, and you should go all in and not just, stop halfway in the journey. You know what I mean? And so for
Absolutely.
me, I feel like I've stopped halfway in the journey. And
I need to go get that CCIE, man, expeditiously.
I know.
As T.I. would tell you.
I've mapped out a plan, and I mapped out which one I'm going for. The problem I have is that the thing about you getting the CCIE is that you were doing what you actually got the CCIE in, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
And I think that's important when it comes to learning anything, to actually be doing it. It helps with that exponential pathway of learning anything because you're actually seeing it and you can apply it and visualize it. And so when I look at the future of tech, my decision and thinking is to go data center. But when it comes to my networking knowledge, it's enterprise. That's what I know. Not so much data
Packets
center.
are still going to have to flow.
Yeah.
Right? You're still going to have to understand ports and routing and whatever routing protocols being used on the back end. Even since I got my CCIE when I got it was on version 9, and I want to say version 12.5 was 12 or 12.5 was out at the time. So version 9 was very old. So I was having to learn like what bugs were present, like because bugs live here. So I was like having to lift up rocks and see what bugs live under there. It was old stuff, man. But I was having a lot of stuff that I learned. A lot of it was still stuff that I was using, but some of it was stuff that I was like, and then with me being in TAC, I really did a lot of support on CUCM, on the phones, on CER, on Informacast. But another team handled the voice gateways. Another team handled the contact center software. Another team handled the apps like Jabber, WebEx, Attendant Console, Unity Connection, CIPC. Another team handled all the telepresence stuff. And so you still have to go and get a understanding of other stuff that you don't know. There's still a lot of learning that you have to do with it. So I think though what you're saying is your concern is if you go and try to learn something, is it going to apply to where you're headed later down the road?
No, I already know data center is where I'm headed down the road. Yeah, that's already there. The question is I'm not doing it. You get what I mean?
Check out the video I did with Derek Clark. He's a CCIE collab, and then he turned around. Listen, next day, I asked him because I was exhausted after the CCIE. I wanted to quit. I didn't even want to do tech. I started looking at management. I'm not even kidding. I call it the CCIE slump. I'm telling you, we'll talk about the different phases. And I hope Ant is still here because I think he'll relate.
Yep.
Talking about the CCIE, Derek Clark. He's an architect. He's from Philly. Parents are from Jamaica. Most positive person I've ever met in my entire life. And remember, I had the CCIE slump, which was normal. A lot of people, Tony E versus CCIE.
Yep.
He talks about getting the slump. Derek, I asked him, I said, listen, when did you start studying for the data center? And he said the day after he passed the IE collab. And I was like, really? Because I thought you didn't get it for like 3 years later. He was like, yeah, because like I thought I was like, I already got one CCIE. How hard can it be? I'll go get a second one and I'll just be good. And he was like 6 months turned into a year. Listen to the video. He's awesome.
Okay.
And he might be a good mentor for you. If you watch the video and come up and be like, hey, Derek, I saw your video. I'm interested in the data center. He would be more than willing to talk to you and help you. And I mean, like, he's not going to like, he will let you fail where you need to fail so that you can pass the exam.
Right.
And he'll help you avoid the pitfalls that are just going to be a waste of time.
Right.
Or at least that's what he did for me on the collab. Right. And he was like, no, you're not using collab cert. Like, stop everything you're doing and go, whatever you can do, get in touch with Vic Mulhey. Right. So like that was an area where he was essentially like, but then there were other times and I'm like, I'm having this issue. And he was like, I know exactly what to do, but I'm not going to help you on that, because if that happened in the exam, I'm not going to be talking to you. So he was like, he called them the scars. That was what he called. He was like, there's scars. And you need to have those scars when you're walking into the lab environment so that you can reference them and not get scarred into the lab environment.
That's good stuff.
Right? That's what he called them, the scars. Let me think, man. Where are we going back to? So the data center and all that. You want to get back to the phases and stuff, man? I'm jumping all over the place.
Nah, man. I'm soaking this up like right here and right now. This is good stuff. And when you talk about your CCIE journey, did you have like a study group?
I had people all over that I was studying with, man. Yeah.
How does that look?
So you know how competitive I can be and how I see every opportunity as an opportunity, right?
Right.
So every time, even if I finished the exam before the person that was sitting next to me, because there was only 2 collab seats, I would wait for them to come out. And I lived locally, but most people were flying in to go to the lab. And so I would just say, hey, you want to go grab some dinner? And then I would become friends with these people and we would study together. But then there was also, I was in TAC, so there's always somebody studying for the CCIE in TAC. That's the other thing, is if you're going for the CCIE and you really, truly want to get it, first off, get to Cisco. Second off, get to TAC. Get your CCIE, do a little more time in TAC, and then pivot.
All right. So what does a study session look like with a study partner? Because I've always been a lone ranger in everything I do. So what does studying?
It wasn't really that.
Like? Okay.
It wasn't really that. Because study sessions for me, when I reached the point where I was ready, was just me sitting in a room, dead focused, as if I were in the exam environment. No music. I would have earphones in, like the plugs. And then I would be acting like I was going through the exam, and I would do it. And then I would leave and come back later and I would grade the exam. And I wouldn't know the points. So I would just grade it and by like review my config. And if I got it right, I got it right. If I got it wrong, then we got to revisit that. So I didn't really have it was kind of like a pass or fail, not like a grade. So, but when do the study partners come into play? When you're studying and you make a mistake and you think you did your config right, but you maybe clicked the wrong button or you checked the checkbox by accident and you somehow enable the new bug. And then you don't know why your config is working when you're trying to validate your config. And then you waste 6 hours of hardcore troubleshooting because you know you did it right and it, right?
Yeah.
And then you pull logs, you pull PCAPs, you do all the troubleshooting. Because for me, that was the way I studied to that point, because I didn't want to have the same issue happening in the lab. And then, so the scars, right? We're going back to the scars, essentially. That 6 hour scar of hardcore troubleshooting would make it so that I wouldn't make that mistake again, because I found out what did I do wrong? And then it also would make it that if I did it wrong again, I could recognize the symptoms and real quick just go back and check, did I accidentally check that box again?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Did you use documentation to document those problems and solutions or whatnot?
We're talking about an official exam. I didn't document anything. But what we would do is say, hey,
no, I mean doing your studying, not doing the actual lab.
oh
I mean
yeah, I
doing
would take my
studying.
own little personal notes.
Okay. Yeah, not doing the
My
lab.
own.
Right.
But like here's how it would go. It'd be like, all right, when you set up voicemail and you're integrating it through Skinny, you know this checkbox right here. If you check that by accident, here's what can happen. So we would educate each other about, like, here's a new parameter that I found out about accidentally, and it cost me 6 hours of valuable time, sometimes the day before the exam, because it was an accident. So it's not like you're like in the beginning when you're trying to figure things out. You're at the end when you're trying to iron things out, and you accidentally check the box and you're taking the exam in 2 days. You can't just say like, it's not working, let me just start from scratch and see if I can make it work. Okay. It's like, it's not working. What would I do if I were in the lab environment?
Right.
And you don't want that to result in a 6-hour loss. And so you tell other people like, hey, this parameter that I never knew about in all my life, I just spent 6 hours getting familiar with it. Let me teach you about it so that you don't have to waste 6 hours. That's where the study partners come into play. But in the CCIE, you're essentially sitting down at your desk for 8 hours and just hardcore going through it. Another thing is sometimes when you spend those 6 hours, ideally you won't do that. Instead, what you'll do is spend a half an hour, maybe an hour. And if it's just outside of your reach, you bring your study buddy in to come and help you review it and maybe even help you troubleshoot it so that you spend an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours rather than 6.
Right. Right.
So that's where the support system and the study buddies come into. And if they help you figure it out, they can maybe help you understand it because they figured it out.
Yeah. How do you vet study partners? Because everybody ain't as focused.
So you're bringing me back a couple years. My first question for the CCIE lab, how I would vet a study partner. And this is back when the written was there. My first question was, did you pass the written? Because if you didn't, you're not even eligible for the lab. Right. I'm light years ahead of you right now in terms of studying.
Right.
Why do I want to study with you?
Right.
It's going to be all help you, and I get nothing back, but trying to waste my time when you know I'm taking the lab tomorrow and you're pinging me to try to help you set up your lab. Like I will ignore your ping. You know what I'm saying? Like the exam is tomorrow and you're just trying to ride the curtails. Like, no. So that would be the first question. Second question, if they did pass it, would be, have you taken your first attempts? Because if not, I've seen people that would get their written and they would put off taking their first attempt so long to the point where the written had expired. They're back to scratch one. And the question becomes, have you passed the written? And the answer now is no. Right? You got to recheck that box. So those were essentially my first two like entry questions.
Okay.
For vetting somebody was to try to really quick out of the gate identify how serious are you about it.
Right. Hey, Antonio asked, what was your MOS?
I had a couple. Ordnance 2311. So I did a lot with bullets and grenades and C4 and rockets and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
And then after that, I got to a unit where they didn't need it. So I did all the chemical stuff. You know, people running you through the gas chambers. Yeah. That was me. All the CS gas. Yeah. But I was dirty, man. I would walk on the bus and find people sleeping and take out some of the CS and just, and then walk off the bus where people were sleeping during the night.
Oh man.
And then they would just wake up to being gassed. I was dirty, man. I was but I was friends with everybody, but it was just, you know, I was a prankster. So. Yeah. But those were my MOSs: 2311, 5711, ordnance, and chemicals, and all that type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that was another question I had about the CCIE. Somebody had asked. Yeah, I think I missed it. Man,
that's all good.
You shed a lot of gems in this interview. And
I'll be honest, man, we didn't even make it through the whole journey.
I know.
And I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry. So, but I just
cool.
wanted to throw that out there. I don't know how long you want to be here. I know we all got work tomorrow.
Yeah, I was thinking we can come back for a part two, and finish this off, because the things you talked about on the CCIE, I want to shift to the India journey, and then I also want to talk about sales. And
yeah, of course.
I want to make sure that we take some questions for the chat before we go.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
one last thing so that we remember for the next video.
Yep.
Strategy. I don't know if people think that getting your CCIE is just if they think that it's just knowing the tech. No, it's absolutely strategy. What to do when, how quickly can you do it? I used to ask people, right? There was a couple different routers you had to configure. I think there was 3 different routers in the topology that you had to configure. And I used to go and ask people, multiple people, hey, how quickly can you get routers 1, 2, and 3 configured? The whole config and all of them done. And some people would say an hour and a half. Some people would say 2 hours. I had mine down to the fastest ever was 45 minutes.
Man.
And that was because whenever I wrote out a command, if I could do it in 1 letter, I would do it. If I could do it in 2 letters, I would do it in 2 letters. No tabbing out or anything. Literally just RS space L space T space TLU space show call active voice brief with show call active voco.
Right.
Or sorry, voice compact. Yeah. But I'll have to show you some of my config next time. So you because everybody here is probably oh yeah, I do right, ma'am. No, I mean an entire config in the least amount of letters possible. And that was how I ran my config. So I was able to, what other people were doing, some other people in 2 hours, I was getting done in 45 minutes, giving me a whole lot more time to read back through the exam again, troubleshoot anything, test again. And so it's all about strategy. It's probably more about strategy than knowing the technical stuff, because how many technical people have you ever seen that went in and just got handed by the CCIE?
Right.
Anyway, I'll let you wrap up.
Well,
or we can do the questions or whatever.
I remember the question now. Somebody asked this, and since Antonio here, he'd appreciate this as well. From you being someone that was in tech, when it comes to automation, how do you apply that to collaboration?
It's everywhere, man. People make their own monitoring systems that come out. There's one called Proximity. That's a third-party one. But even in the contact center side, I was tweeting not too long ago about I told you even. Remember I told you it came down to the wire and 20 minutes before a demo? Yeah. I was messing around with the APIs and stuff. So what I was doing was, this customer, they wanted a demo of the best web, the best in all the world, most elite contact center in the world. And I said, I got you, WebEx Contact Center, right? That's the most, no, trying to sell here. So I got on a call with them and was asking them well, what is it you want out of a contact center? Do you know what type of data you want to be able to see? What visibility? What sort of call flows do you want? And they let me know all this stuff. And some of it, I was there's no way I can set that up to demo it to them. I can tell them it's capable of doing it, but I was man, that is so complex. I don't think I'll be able to set it up to actually show them and do a true demo of it. But then eventually I changed my mind and said, no, I think we can set it up. So what ended up happening was I ended up working all through the night with a guy from Australia. This was on a Sunday night. I think that was a Monday night. And then Tuesday, the next morning, he had to go because his day was over. So one of the architects came on and he started helping me. But really who I was trying to get to was one of our developers. And then he came online and finally pinged me back. So I was I talked to the architect. I was I love you, but bye. And got the engineer on. And then we were sitting there smashing our heads against the wall forever, trying to figure out in what way is this API packaging the data and sending it over to us. Because it was an array inside of a dictionary, inside of a list. It was really weird the way it was. And we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, you got to loop through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we didn't know how it was coming over. We only had like a path expression that we were using to get it. And so eventually we got like the head developer for WebEx Contact Center on. And he was like in 15 minutes, something that I had spent probably 2 work days worth of work on.
Wow.
15 minutes. And then it made so much sense when he explained it to me, and he showed me in WebEx Contact Center. He was like, look, if you would have just looked at this, you would have had your answer. And that's why he fixed it so quickly. He showed me like some of the life hacks of WebEx Contact Center. And then I need to make a video on it now. But it's programming. We were doing legit programming, like APIs, capturing data. Let me tell you what it was. The workflow that they had was if you called in and you got to a live agent, they had a series of questions that they had to ask you for you to fill it out, for them to get a ticket open in their backend system that would then go out to other companies and open up tickets with them. But the problem is their agents were being on the phone, having to fill out this form and ask people for the information, then input it, and then it might be wrong. And then if it's wrong, if it's the wrong address or something,
right,
and it needs to be corrected, there's charges that come from the other companies for opening up tickets with them with inaccurate information, right?
Yeah.
So what they were saying, something that they wanted to do down the road in the future, was they wanted to be able to have like some way to capture the customer's speech as text, speech to text, and then have it go fed into the form for the agent to just have to verify what they said.
Nice.
And so what I ended up doing was going all night long and figuring out, like messing around with a smart sheet form and figuring out how to feed variables into the form so that when the web page opened up, those variables were pre-populating the fields on the form, right? So I got that part open of the ticket system where the agent just has to review it and click submit.
Right.
So I had that part of it. Now I had to figure out how to get the data pulled in from the customer speaking. So I went over to the Google CCAI, which is Contact Center Artificial Intelligence. So I went over to the Google CCAI product suite where they have virtual agents and speech to text, and you can get IVR transcriptions and stuff like that. And so I set up a thing where you would call in and say, it was a conversational IVR. So it would say, hello, how can I help you today? Right. Like you're talking to a person, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, I want to open a ticket. And then it would start asking me the things of the fields, the different fields. So it'd say, what is your name? Give my name. Thank you. What's your address? Open the address. I said, well, would you like to speak to a live agent? I'll say, yes, please escalate to a live agent. And the next thing you know, my phone start ringing. And when I answer the phone on the screen, a form opens up with all the stuff that I just said, already pre-populated, and I just had to confirm it and click submit. All of that on the back end was an API to pull it in from the Google side, an API to push it from Google over to an API call to push it over to the smart sheet, right? And so if you want to talk about programmability and being a collaboration engineer, it's out there. I mean, they have certs on it. There's CL Auto, there's the WebEx cert. And if you don't see anywhere to apply it, but you just want to get into it, just do the dev ask or start going down the CCNP track. But I mean, if you want us to have it applied to collab, there's collab certs. And I mean, the DevNet, developer.cisco.com, they got content on there.
Yeah, but I think that's a great example of a real world use case for collab engineers to be able to apply automation. A lot of times when I talk to collab engineers, they say, well, everything in Call Manager or whatever platforms you use is already automated. So this instance with WebEx, you were able to set up an automated AI system that took the user's feedback, and then when the engineer picks up a phone, they get the form fully populated, and all they got to do is either verify or just click submit, and then the tickets open up. And I think that example right there is one more collab engineers need to see that use case. I don't know if you submit it for like DevNet Create or Cisco Live, but that would be a great.
I never even thought to.
Yeah, you should. I think you should.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm not really doing much code on it, to be honest, because a lot of it is in the WebEx platform. Like they've done it very well. Like they have custom API connectors where you just kind of got to put in like your key and maybe a little bit of other information, and then you just click save and on the back end. So it's like, even though you're doing programming and stuff, your programming knowledge helps you better understand. Like, do you think I would have been able to sit on a call with those developers and like they would have told me to kick rocks because I never would have reached the point that would have been interesting enough to grab their attention.
Right, without knowing like the DevNet
Yeah.
information that you've learned.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about coding. It's not always this big, long, drawn out code. It's more, how do you think and solve problems through automation? How do you think and solve problems through code or APIs? You know what I mean?
I had one on Call Manager where there was a bug in version 10.5 where the Call Manager service would crash after it consumed too much memory, like 2.5 gigs worth of memory, it would crash. And it was supposed to write a file, a core file, when it would crash. But there was something wrong where it wasn't writing a core file. So what you would have to do is you would have to watch it and wait. After it would crash, you would have to watch it and wait to see when it got to the point that it was going to crash. Hope that you were around and watching, and hope that you had the command ready in Linux to get into root. And because root access is restricted to TAC.
Right.
So you'd have to get the TAC engineer on the line to quickly get into root and hopefully be able to kill the process and tell it to write a core file before it crashed and didn't write a core file. So it was really hard to do. And so what I did was I wrote a Python script and I hopped into root in the lab into Linux, and I figured out how to, through Linux commands, periodically run a Linux command to check the size of the memory on the call manager process. And then I was parsing that to more easily be able to like really quickly check to see where we were. And then if it were at a certain point and it were a certain time of day, run this other command that will kill that process. And I think it was like with a -6 would make it write a core file, if I remember right. And this was me. I didn't even know programming as well back then. I still don't, in my opinion. So what did that do? Well, I had a case that was going on for way too long because we couldn't get, they kept crashing and we weren't getting the file. And so I went to the BU and I said, look, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm trying to do at least. And it was a gentleman named Bill Benninghoff that I was talking to, who anybody who has been in TAC and worked on CUCM BU is going to know Bill Benninghoff, right? And he liked the idea. So he had I think he was like a technical leader on the software engineering side. So he got me directly talking to one of the developers, and then they got it checked in on their side. They modified it a little bit, made how they wanted to make it. And that's actually code that I've written that's in CUCM 10.5 SU8.
Nice.
Right. But we also were able to do the TAC case now, because you can't really work a TAC case and find a bug or do anything if you can't capture the files and if you can't capture the trace.
Right.
Right. And so once we did that, and I was so happy because what I tried to do actually worked. And it was before, like, I actually had to go into Linux on their system after getting the developer's approval to go put that in Linux in like a folder on the customer system and let it run until it crashed. And I had it set up to, even if you wanted to, you could go in and do a file list and list out the log file where it was telling you the size of the file, the date and time, and it logged all of them because it was in a pen statement.
Right.
And so it would tell you every single time that it checked, what was the date, what was the time, what was the size of the file. And so you could see over time as it progressed, how close are we getting? And like, what's the linear progression towards that? So like, you can know like, okay, we're probably going to get it later this week. Right. And we ended up finding the bug and closing it out.
Cool. Hey, I'm going to take like 2 or 3 questions before we out of here.
Yes, sir. I'll shut up.
All right, let me find. There's a couple in here. I'm gonna take one from. Let's go with Jeffrey Hernandez. The question is, if Patrick had to retake his Cisco certs today, would he do collab all over again or head a different path?
Collab all over again. I don't know if you saw the video that I shared from Jurassic Park. Somebody kind of like spoofed it. Do you know the part in Jurassic Park where the phones start working again? He goes, the phones are working, but there's like velociraptors like running around. Do you remember that part in Jurassic
No, I
Park?
don't. But yeah,
But could you imagine velociraptors are running around and they're just happy the phones are working? Think about it, man. If the printer's not working, nobody cares. If email's down or slow or a web page is slow, but if a phone isn't working, I'm going to hear about it at least. I'm sure that the network guys and everybody else are going to hear about it.
right.
You kind of bring a different sort of level of visibility. So yeah, I'll go collab again.
Good answer. That's a good answer. All right. Let's see. Next question is from. Let me see. Is Cyrax Visuals. He says, "Do you guys think it's better to push for an advanced cert rather than entry level, even though I have no experience?"
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do it. It was hard. It was hard even with all the experience I had. Get at least go entry level and who knows, man. Maybe you'll find out like going through the entry level cert, like which track you really like.
Yeah.
Because if you go straight for the expert level, you might find yourself in a track that maybe you're not as excited about, and then you're less likely to pass it because you're going to burn out.
Yeah, I think with no experience, it's tough, because we're in what 2021, and you have certain certifications that are like general. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And when you look at this general knowledge, so getting the basic understanding of computing, that's helpful. A basic understanding of security, that's helpful.
I don't have either.
Right, you don't have either. Like
It's
they're
not
helpful,
needed, but
yeah.
it's good to have it, right?
Yeah.
More knowledge is always better than less knowledge, but people will always tell you you're wasting your time. But it's like, but I like reading about history.
Yeah.
You don't like reading about history, so you say I'm wasting my time, but it's my time to waste.
I think that's a good point. I think whatever certification that interests you, well, I would do my research on it and see, for one,
course.
If it'll get you a job. I think that's the goal, is to get in the field. And if you spend a bunch of time, like Patrick said, on the advanced certification, you could get in a situation to where you're not even interested, and you spent 6-7 months on this cert, and now you have a cert that'll get you a specialized job, and you don't even want to do that job.
Absolutely.
So
that's my take on it.
Yeah. So be curious. I think that's the goal. When you first enter IT, be curious, but still be focused. Be focused and learn to eliminate those distractions. Which leads me to my question that I have for you. How do you stay focused, and how do you eliminate distractions? Like
watch
social media,
the documentary Social Dilemma.
Yeah, great, on Netflix.
Yes.
Yes, great.
That'll help you manage distractions, or at least I hope it will. After I watched that, I started putting time limits on my apps. I'm only allowed to do something for 1 hour. Problem is, I can also hit ignore, so you see me tweeting a little more. So your 1 hour is up. You had your hour for the day. I'm like, give me 15 more minutes, which is another thing that goes back to the social dilemma. Really, the intent of me setting it to 1 hour was so that I wouldn't spend more than 1 hour a day on Twitter. So when I hit ignore repeatedly a day, come on, that's a problem. Social dilemma will help you. Like I'm blatantly going against what I set up for myself. I'm ignoring my own guidance, right? When I do that every time. And so the social dilemma will help you highlight all the social engineering and artificial learning and machine learning and AI that goes into getting you to stay on your phone longer. And hopefully, if you understand that bit of it, because even the people that they're talking to are the people who testified in front of Congress about all this stuff. And they're the developers. They're the people who created the little like button on the Facebook pictures. And they talk about they didn't know what sort of impact that was going to have on society, right? And so these people that they're talking to are the people who put, like when you go to Vegas, what do they want you to do? They want you to spend money and stay at the slot. They want to keep your attention. All of that same stuff is now in your phone, right? And they talk about that. And even the guy, he said, Sometimes I'll be in my pantry looking at my phone and I get a little annoyed that I'm falling victim to my own engineering. How are we supposed to beat it and they can't? So the other thing was another guy said something that resonated. He was a hedge fund, something or other. He said, when you get up in the morning, do you check your phone before you pee or while you're peeing? Because those are the only two options. And I was like, damn, I don't know which one I am. I don't like this. I'm one of those two, but I don't know which one because I don't pay enough attention to it. And now when I go to reach for my phone, it's to check the time first thing in the morning, and I put it back.
I got 2 points on this. Like right now on my phone, I don't have YouTube, I don't have Facebook, I don't have Instagram, I don't have Twitter.
I messed up. I put Facebook back. Remember I posted about how I deleted it?
Hey, but that's the point. So
when it back, man.
When it comes to Twitter, when it comes to YouTube, like I don't check my timeline. I don't.
Good.
If I happen to check my timeline, like Twitter, I have so much disdain for Twitter. I happen to check my timeline, and Twitter doesn't show me actual timeline. It shows me the tweets that it wants me to see.
Exactly. And do you know how many tweets I'm like, I didn't even on Facebook, I'll go to like a friend's Facebook page. I'm like, I haven't heard from this person in 3 years. What are they up to? They've been posting every day. Why haven't I seen it on my timeline? Because they don't want you to see that one, because they don't think that that's the person that's going to get you to stay on your phone longer.
So with that being said, like I don't do it. Like you'll have to say, hey, did you see this tweet? Or you'll have to add me in a tweet or message me about a tweet because I won't look. You know, I don't like distractions, and there's rabbit holes when it comes to social media. And my second point.
Yes, sir.
You're either a creator or a consumer. I'm a creator. I'm not a consumer.
If the product is free,
you're either a creator.
You know what I'm talking about?
You're either a creator or consumer.
There's a saying, and I can't remember it. I was hoping you would fill me in. That's why I paused. If the product is free, then
you are the product.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, if the product is free, then you are the product.
It's a crazy documentary. It gets very political, so don't try to read into my political views on that, because I got some pretty crazy political views that deal with geopolitical, international affairs types of stuff. So my political views are kind of complex. So whatever is political in that documentary, take it, leave it, do whatever you want to do with it. The point of it is to hear from the developers about what's going on.
Yeah. It is a powerful interview, and I think if you're not aware of how your emotions, your mind is consumed by social media or responds to social media.
How much they control it.
Man.
And I'm talking because of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know that after that, I went through and started setting time limits, not only on the apps, but on my phone? My phone will be like, it's like, you're past your time that you're allowed to be on your phone as a whole. And then when I started looking into that and that you can do all this stuff, they have all these analytics that you can look about your phone.
Right.
I was spending at one point in time 9 hours a day on my phone, more than I do at work. And I have a family and I'm supposed to be sleeping.
Right.
The math doesn't line up.
Right.
And my wife has even pointed it out. My son has come up to me and said, Dad, he did it today. Dad, turn off your phone. And I said, okay, son. And I did it because I'm trying to work on it, right? And these little things will happen that you'll realize that help you work on it more. Like my son looking at me and saying, I didn't expect that to work. That's bad.
What helps me is that I'm a creator. I'm not a consumer.
Yeah, that's what I need to work on. I need to listen to you. I'm going to remember that. In case you haven't noticed, I'm big on sayings. Jackie Robinson had a saying, a life is insignificant aside from its impact on other lives. So like, I'm going to sayings stick with me. So creator, not consumer.
And I feel bad sometimes because I don't want the people that I care about to think I don't support what they do.
You're protecting your own mental health.
Man, like you said a time limit. But think about this. No matter how much you set that time limit for, it only takes one tweet to knock you off course for a whole day.
Yeah, beyond. Of course.
You know what I
Because
mean?
here's the problem with me is I'll go in and start reading the subtweets. And then next thing you know, I'm like multiple levels down.
That's the rabbit holes.
Yeah. And then I'm like, start cursing. What the am I doing? Get like I don't want I get mad at myself, and so I get mad at the phone. But it's crazy, man. That's how you do it. And I was very, very fortunate that I hated social media, so I didn't have any. I only started getting on social media until recently, and I started to realize how it can help you in your career, which is a whole nother conversation we can have.
Man, I guard my energy with my life.
Yeah.
Like on LinkedIn, I used to just
you checked me. People. I don't know if you remember it. I hit you up early in the morning with some negative stuff, and you checked me. I didn't even know you yet, and I was like, "Yes, sir." Do you remember it?
You ain't even have to call that out, bro. Don't say
that's all right. It's honest. I mean, if we're gonna be honest here, DeJuan's not lying about it.
I guard it with my life, bro. Like, you know, I'm a. How can I say? I will give people the shirt off my back, but since I've been on social media, people want to take the shirt off my back.
Okay.
Now think about it. If you want to give the shirt off your back, and people still want to take the shirt off your back, and so like
you got to put a buffer.
You got to put a buffer. And when it comes to your energy,
all of this that you're talking about is bringing value to anyone who needs to hear it, and anyone who's going for the CCIE needs to hear it, because you need a buffer. You have to protect yourself. Your mental capacity is going to be stretched thin. At least if you go through it the way I did. 5 attempts wasn't easy. I seriously, in all my life, had never, ever, ever contemplated quitting anything, ever. Even when I wanted to quit in the military, I would look at a big old tree and wish it would fall on me. So at least I didn't have to keep going, but it wasn't my fault. Didn't want to do it. I didn't have a choice, right? And so with the CCIE, it was the first time because it was a different type. Remember the phases I told you about? We haven't even gotten to it yet.
Right.
There's phases, and one of the phases you reach to is where you're failing, but you're only failing by like a point or two. But you can't figure out where those 2 or so points are. And so you're just grasping for straws and thinking like, maybe this or maybe that. You get to the point where you're going crazy because you're like so done, and you think you're doing it all correct, but you're not getting the points. I've seen some people start to think the proctor is after them. The proctor is why I'm failing. They're messing with my lab, right? And I always tried to tell people, don't say that, because the moment you say that, you're now saying the proctor is the reason why you're failing instead of yourself. You need to say what's wrong with my config, because obviously you're missing the points for a reason. And so it must be your config, because what's the proctor? Why do they care about you, right? And I can't tell you how many times, and even some people who it would seem like I got through their thick head, eventually I would say, why did you quit going for it? Because the proctor was in the way. I thought we talked about this.
You know, some people don't like accountability, and a lot of people don't like ownership. They don't own it. Yeah. They don't like owning when they mess up or when they fail or when things just don't go their way because of their lack of knowledge or lack of effort or lack of commitment to tasks, certifications, or whatever it is. I own everything I do. For instance, I failed Dev Corps 3 times, and every time I failed was because I've never focused fully on the exam.
I'm mad at you right now. I am so mad at you right now.
Why are you mad at me?
I failed the collab core. I'm a freaking CCIE in collab. I failed the collab core like a month ago. I'm so mad at you. I wasn't going to bring it up. I didn't have to bring it up, but if you're going to be honest about it.
Be honest.
It's not easy, man. It's not easy. Yeah. I was pissed. I was like, I'm not telling anybody. I didn't tweet about it, nothing.
You know what? I didn't want to tweet about me failing the Dev Corps because it's not something that I even like set up a plan to really pass. You know what I mean? Like I had a plan laid out, but I always put my other priorities before studying. I figured, man, I do this every day. I should pass the exam. And I felt like it should be given
That's what me. I did. That's exactly what I did. I was like, I'm a CCIE. I helped write the exam.
Exactly.
How funny is that? That's one of the biggest reasons why I didn't tweet about it. But in my list, I got to defend myself now. There was There was new questions. I didn't work on those questions.
I don't have no excuses.
Right?
I don't have no excuses. I failed.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, I failed. I was so mad at myself.
But it happens, man. I mean, I think the fact that people pass certifications that do it the right way, I have so much respect for
that is the part that's surprising. Not that you failed. I actually tell people that your first attempt at the exam is part of your studying.
Yeah.
Get it out of the way. If you pass, surprise. If you fail, at least now you know what you're up against.
Yep.
And if you don't take it, guess what? You keep putting it off until you feel you're ready. You know, a lot of people, they'll be like 6 months in, not ready yet. Year in, I'm not ready yet, not taking it. Year and a half in, I feel ready now. Okay, you're going to take it? Not yet. 2 years in, you're going to take it? Yeah, I'm taking it on Monday. You pass it? No, I failed. Well, you could have failed a year and a half ago and then pinpointed your studying. But now it's 3 years in and life's a lot harder now. And you're already burnt out. That's the number one thing on the CCIE is the burnout rate. Yeah. So many people that should have their CCIE, if money wasn't a thing and time wasn't a thing and energy wasn't a thing, if they could just endlessly take another attempt, would get their CCIE eventually. Right. The problem is figuring out the strategy and having the most in-depth, intimate understanding of the exam that you're going into. Getting to that point as quickly as you can so that you avoid the burnout, which is the number one cause of people failing the CCIE. And when I say fail, I mean stopping to take the CCIE and moving on to being I once tried instead of I am a CCIE.
Man, I'm gonna take one more question.
Yes, sir.
Before we go, the question is from Ayo Bro. What's the best way to retain information without cramming?
Anki note cards. They're intelligent note cards is what they call it. So all this AI and learning and stuff, right, that we're talking about, there have been scientific studies about how people retain information for short term, for long term, right, all that. And then the information and data that they gathered from those studies, this company has taken it and put it into their application. So now you're doing note cards, but you're doing note cards that are presented to you. And I can't even explain it. If I tried to explain it, it wouldn't give it justice. I do have a video on it where I explained it and I showed how to set it up and how to use it. And I showed some of their written explanation of what they are and why they are good. Medical doctors use it. Art of engineering, right? The art of network engineering. You know, the podcast, you were on it.
No, I wasn't. But yeah.
What?
You weren't on it? No.
Listen, all right. So now we're gonna get to a different topic that
they reached out to me though. They reached out to me.
No. Because listen, when I drove up to New York for my grandmother's funeral back in February, which I know touches home for you because I saw what you were talking about, which DMX, I Miss You. I've been wanting to send you that song because your grandmother passed away.
Yeah, man.
Go listen to that song, dude. Yeah. Man, I've been listening to that song since February and just fucking crying. But anyway, the art of network engineering, they talk a lot about Anki. And though they haven't had you on the show yet, maybe in my head they are going to have you on there one day. And so it's already happened. You just don't know it yet.
I'm not doing no more
really
interviews,
what happened
bro.
was I was driving up to New York and I listened to a lot of their stuff all the way up. And then you were live on my drive down. So I was in Maryland, driving through Maryland while I think, what's her name, De'Ara?
Yeah.
CCIE by 30, I think was on, maybe helping. You were giving them shout outs or whatever. So I was like, oh, I'm in Maryland right now, like driving back down to North Carolina.
Okay.
And maybe that's what it was, man, because that time there was so much going on.
Yeah. And
everything was a blur.
Yeah.
That I think I maybe mixed it up that way. But they have an episode, because I listened episode after my whole drive up. And that's even how I used to study. I would have audiobooks. And so if I was in the car, I was studying. That hour to work every day, I was studying in some capacity. Right? But the note cards, I used to write them out. I used to literally have stacks of note cards that would hurt my butt because I would keep them in my back pocket. And so when I was sitting, the stack of note cards was so thick, it was messing up my hip. Right? Like sitting on a wallet, right? Yeah. And but having it on my phone, exactly. But having it on my phone right? I always had my phone. So if I was stopped in the grocery store waiting in line, I'm bringing up my note cards on my phone and I'm going through them, and it tracks and it tells you how many cars did you do that day, right? So you want a quick walkthrough? It's not quick, but you want a quick walkthrough of how it goes? You got to get to
let's
bed,
do
man.
it. Let's do it, and then
Yeah.
we'll
All
wrap it
right.
up.
So it'll present you with whatever note card you made, and you can put video, you can put audio, you can put pictures, right? It doesn't have to be a boring note card. I used to ask a question up front: how do you configure a e-phone on a CME? I would go through it in my head, but when you would flip the card in the Enki app, it was a video of me going through and explaining to myself the commands I was running and how to configure. But it was just a short, like 30-second video. Maybe I would even have the config already in there typed out so that I could make it even quicker and say, this command does this, that, blah, blah, blah. This piece needs to match here, right? If you're doing the ePhone DN, it needs to that number needs to match the button, right? And the video would be like 30 seconds, but I would be able to see, like, was my answer right? But I was doing visual learning. I was also explaining it back to myself as I was walking through it.
Right.
And on Anki, I mean, the problem is, if you want to get it to that level, the amount of time and effort it takes to make cards is at that level, cards at that level takes a lot of time. But if you're going for the CCIE, you want to do all that legwork up front.
Right.
So that as you're studying and you're reaching the point where, I mean, I have a family. While I was studying for the CCIE, we had to go down. My aunt invited us down to see her in Florida. So I'm like, man, I just want to study. And so when we were in the car driving down to Florida, I'm on the note cards. When we were in the hotel room first thing in the morning, waking up, and it's always on my phone, so it's always with me, and it was always high quality content because I made it that way. Right. You don't just have to have a little scribble on a piece of paper. Right. You can have a full-fledged video, 30 seconds, explaining the answer rather than you just reading it on a piece of paper. And that, all of that put together, that platform alone, and you do it that way, where you can just maybe do it to where you do 5 minutes a day. Who doesn't have 5 minutes to go through note cards? But it is going to be the most highly focused, like pinpointed focus, because what will happen is if you're getting it wrong, you'll see it more often. If you're getting it right, it takes longer. So sometimes you might have note cards, if you've been doing it for a while, that you don't see for 3 months. And now you're rusty. So you either get it right or you get it wrong. And if you get it right, you mark it right. If you get it wrong, you mark it wrong. But now they're going to start showing you, they'll show it to you in like 2 days instead of 3 months, right? So you're revisiting the stuff that you're getting wrong and not even seeing the stuff you're getting right. And so your focus, your the type of studying you're doing with that is highly, highly, highly valuable, right? The return on investment is there. And you don't even have to think about it, because how often, and DeJuan, tell me you do this because I know you do. When you go to study, you're not only studying the stuff you don't know that you don't know,
right?
But you're refreshing the stuff that you've done a million times. And that's really a waste of time because you've done it a million times.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I make note cards. I can show you, I got like 10 crates of note cards.